Let us look at this alarm raised by Sheikh GUMI talking about the presence of Mossad in Nigeria. We understand that Sheikh GUMI has always been at the center of controversy when it comes to fight against banditry and terrorism in Nigeria. This is a man who have severally negotiated for bandits. But I want to say that the federal government should ignore the likes of Sheikh GUMI and push ahead with every necessary move it takes to decimate the bandits, the terrorists. Though I do not have any classified information to verify whether Mossad agents are in Nigeria or not. But I want to say that if the presence of Mossad is what is needed by federal government to decimate, to win the war against insurgency, I think it's a welcome development. Because each time federal government is getting it right, Sheikh GUMI have a way of trying to demoralize the armed forces. We have seen the same Sheikh GUMI in the past made a very serious case for the bandits, where he was saying, of course, that was last year, that the armed forces, particularly the Air Force, is coming very hard on the bandits. And the allegation then was that they were killing bandit members, family members. So I begin to wonder, do family members of bandits stay in the forest, in the bushes, alongside with their bandit husband, as the case may be, their father, as the case may be? So the question is someone like a former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, made it very clear that bandits do not repent, that the best treatment of bandits is to disallow them, send them to their creator who have the ultimate power to judge them. So you begin to wonder where someone like Sheikh GUMI is drawing his own ideology. Because for me, being sympathetic to bandits is not the way to go. I think the president, Senator Tinubu, should know that Nigerians, patriotic Nigerians, are in his support to decimate bandits. Because recently, I want to say that the whole Nigerian patriotic one anyway celebrated the arrest of those bandit leaders, talking about the Mahmuda bandit leaders that were arrested recently. And that is the way to go. Like I said, I do not have any classified information to understand whether Mossad agents are in Nigeria or not. But if for any reason they are in Nigeria, and that is why we are seeing success, I think it's a welcome development. Because I recall that even recently, that is why I will give you that video to watch, a former House of Assembly member from Borno State chronicled how the armed forces were winning the war against Boko Haram, particularly in 2015, when the election was postponed for 2 weeks to enable the armed forces push back Boko Haram. Jonathan then was desperate to win the war against terrorism because the North were on his head that he was not able to fight insurgency. So he was desperate, he went and brought in mercenaries. But watch his assertion as we come back to further this conversation.
You cannot just sit down watching them to do whatever they feel like doing simply because they are professionals. You cannot talk to them. Give them target. During Jonathan, we brought mercenaries. They were about to finish Boko Haram. But because of our complacency and personal aggrandizement and personal interest, we asked them to go back. And we are still battling with the issue. I was in Borno State as a member of a state House of Assembly when the mercenaries were in Borno. They were less than 30. They operate in a place like this. Everybody with a laptop before him, observing what is happening in the bush. The moment they discover an enclave, they will be able to identify how many weapons do they have, what kind of weapons are they using, how many AK-47 do they have, how many explosives do they have. They will take only 3 or 4 people in a chopper, go and clear everything. They will snap pictures before clearing them and bring back exhibit. We are about to finish it. And because of interest, personal interest, that if we allow mercenaries to finish this thing, we are not going to get anything. How much was the bill given by the mercenaries? Even Russia is employing mercenaries to fight for them, isn't it? Are we stronger than Russia? Is there anything wrong if you can bring somebody that can fight for you? There's nothing wrong in that. So I'm sorry if people are saying that National Assembly is not doing the needful, National Assembly is not providing the enabling laws. We have provided all the enabling laws. The enforcement of such laws is not ours. If government is not ready to implement, there is no way we can compel government. The only thing we can advise government, if government refuses to do it, there is no way you can force them. Because they have the mercenaries for implementation. You do not have.
So from what you explained, you can understand that the government needs some level of collaboration with some experts outside the country. So I want to say that Sheikh GUMI should stop shedding crocodile tears. Because each time we see federal government winning the war against insurgency, against banditry, he is always coming out to diplomatically defend the bandits. This is somebody who have openly canvassed for non-kinetic approach to addressing the issue of banditry. Begin to wonder if he's a patriotic Nigerian. The right thing to do is to advise federal government to acquire monopoly or coercive power to deal with them. Because personally, it's very clear. The likes of Toji Bello, the likes of Ada Aleru must be dealt with every might of federal government. That is why I'm even asking the government, the Tinubu's government, do not negotiate with the likes of Toji Bello. Do not negotiate with the likes of Ada Aleru. Because negotiating with them, give them soft landing, is to say that the lives of Nigerians, the lives of military personnel who are dying in their hands as a result of their nefarious activities does not have value. The lives of Toji Bello, the lives of Ada Aleru, and any other leader that is not easy to arrest should be taken out in the battlefield. However, if they are arrested, just like the Mahmuda leaders arrest, they should face the law and let the court make pronouncements to act as deterrent to others. But if it takes the military, the Air Force, to take them out in the battlefield, I think it's another way to go. Because that is the only way Nigerians can heal without relief. We recall recent onslaught against Nigerians even in Zamfara State. We even recall the other time when the likes of Toji Bello and his lieutenants celebrated burning down a military vehicle. And you want to tell Nigerian government that they should be using non-kinetic approach. I must say it's unacceptable because it exposes Nigerian state as a weak state. That is why I'm saying that every patriotic Nigerian is in support of what federal government is doing against the bandits. They must be neutralized. They must be taken out in the battlefield. The one that can be arrested should be arrested, be brought before law court, be tried, and let the court make pronouncement. And another issue is, we understand that federal government is currently pushing for forest guard. It's another way to go, even though we saw opposition to it from Plateau State, talking about when the House Committee on Constitutional Review, the Senate Committee on Constitutional Review visited Plateau State, and the governor of Plateau State, Mufwang, made a proposal for state police. We saw the Militias in that state saying they do not want state police. So I want to say that Nigerians want state police if it is the solution to this problem. But beyond this, the one that is very imminent, that it will come fast, is the forest guard. I want to say that it's equally a welcome development. At least let us have that first. And let us ensure that the locals are integrated into that forest guard. Because we can clearly see successes being recorded by, of course, the locals in different parts of the country. We saw the one that came from Delta State, or Washiku to be precise. We saw the one that came from Abraka in Delta State as well. We saw the one that came from Kwara State recently, where a handful of bandits were arrested. And of course, so at this point, I think Nigerians should rise and start asking the likes of Sheikh GUMI question. What is their interest? Because for me, life is sacrosanct. And that life that is sacrosanct must be protected. And the Constitution puts the rights, and the Constitution puts the power of protection, the responsibility of protecting lives and property in the office of the president and the respective governors of the country. Because if you look at section 14, subsection 2B of 1999 Constitution as amended, it's very clear. It said the welfare of the people and their security shall be the primary purpose of governance. So to that extent, collectively, both the governors, the president, and even the local government chairman have a shared responsibility of protecting lives and property. And that they must do without excuse. And again, if you look at this in the light of a revelation that came from a retired military intelligence officer who made it very clear that the ultimate aim of those who sponsor terrorism, Boko Haram, is to Islamize the country. So that is why the president must not take it light with them, must give it every seriousness that it deserves. And in a way, instead of the North addressing the root cause of all these issues, they will be busy chasing shadow, shedding crocodile tears like Sheikh GUMI. You are going to think of it. Why will you have a population that will be vulnerable to be radicalized into terrorism? The reason is not far-fetched. Because by the time you born children, you allow them grow in the wild without proper education, without proper parental care, definitely is a recipe for crisis. You are breeding potential bandits, breeding potential Boko Haram members, breeding potential ISWAP members, breeding potential Asaru terrorist organization members. Because I not be concerned when the North recently tried to blame federal government for the level of out-of-school children in the North. We need to wonder, on what basis will the North be blaming federal government for out-of-school children in the North? Because that is why I will bring you these statistics on the screen to see the number of out-of-school children in the northern part of the country, the percentage in the northern part of the country. As you can see on the screen, you can see in some cases 60-something%, 50-something%, 40-something%, 30-something%, as the case may be. And the question is, you are talking about children, people within the age bracket of 6 and 16. A handful of them, 60-something% of that age bracket is not in school. In some cases, 50-something% is not in school. In some cases, 30-something% is not in school. I must say that it is a recipe for crisis. And the question is, the argument of the North that federal government owe the children a responsible education. You begin to wonder, because under the universal basic education, the responsibility of training the Nigerian child rests with the 3 tiers of government. Talking about the federal, state, and local governments. However, what behoves of federal government to do is the policy direction and the funding. And that they do for all the states without exception, both the states in the south and the northern part of the country. So, seeing that the children are in school, the classroom, the teacher, and all of that rests with the states and local governments. So the question is, why is it that the states in the south are getting it right, but in the states in the north are not getting it right? I think it's a function of neglect of the children. Ultimately, to subjugate the people and to make them a willing tool for control. And I must say it's not acceptable that the northern leaders, northern stakeholders will go back to the drawing board to address this issue of out-of-school children. Because however I look at it, it is a recipe. Of course, it is the basis for which northern youths are vulnerable to be recruited into banditry, into terrorism, into all manner of evil activities. Because it is very clear. Psychologists say that the newly born child, that the brain is a tabula rasa, a clean slate, on which the critical write anything he or she wishes to write. So the question is, by the time you as a society, as guardians, as government, as leaders, refuse to write the norms of the society into the child, definitely the bandits will help you to write their own value system in the child. And I think the consequence is what everybody is facing in Nigeria today. Because the money that is being used to fight terrorism, that runs into billions of naira, billions of dollar, could have been used to address other areas of human endeavor in the country. Particularly infrastructural developments and maybe diversify the economy into agriculture and solid mineral. But the money is being wasted because you need to fight insecurity for you to even in the first place have a good atmosphere to address infrastructure, healthcare, and all of that. So the North must go back to the drawing board to come up with templates to take their children out of the streets and ensure that they are educated. And of course, nobody will accept a situation where, because currently, the insecurity in the North is already being exported to the southern part of the country. It's exported to the southern part of the country, and everybody is now facing that same insecurity. And this is as a result of neglect of some people, making it everybody's problem. And somebody will be telling federal government that the presence of Mossad agents is not good. I'm not saying there is a Mossad agent anyway. I don't know how to classify information. But the point I'm making is, if there are Mossad agents in Nigeria, if that is why we are recording success against the fight insurgency, if that is even the reason we saw the arrest of 2 bandit leaders recently, talking about Mahmouda bandit leaders, I think it's a welcome development. And I think the federal government should ignore such crooked tears and push ahead to ensure that bandits are decimated, bandits are arrested, bandits are neutralized in the battlefield. That is the way to go. Because as a government, you must possess monopoly or coercive power to police every inch of your territorial integrity. Of course, that is what makes the government ultimate. Anything to the contrary exposes the government as a weak sovereign state. Because what the federal government through the Nigerian army will normally call ragtag, like the bandits, we can clearly see the havoc they wreak. We can clearly see, of course, in some cases, you need to wonder whether they are able to gather some level of actionable intelligence. Because we saw the burning down of military base in Borno recently. The action, or rather the operation, will no doubt suggest that the bandits, the terrorists, may have gotten some level of actionable intelligence that have given them that leeway to have burned down such formidable military base. Then to crown it all, the locals, just as the Director General of DSS echoed recently, must be appropriately and adequately integrated into the security architecture. Because they are the ones that have the best intelligence, of course, actionable intelligence that is needed to fight crime at that level. Of course, if you have some level of intelligence, you can nip crime in the bud. So once the locals and the traditional rulers, of course, we understand that the traditional rulers have moral authority over the people. So once the traditional rulers are equally integrated into the system, it will create a situation where the dissemination of those actionable intelligence will be seamless. Because since the locals have implicit confidence in their traditional rulers, they can easily relate with them, give them such actionable intelligence, who can in turn share such with security agencies for purpose of operation and nipping crime in the bud. I must say that the issue of crime and criminality, fighting it, is demand for a concerted effort, a symbiotic relationship where all hands must be on deck, particularly patriotic Nigerians, not the likes of Sheikh GUMI, who is always negotiating for bandits, who is always advocating for a non-kinetic approach to fighting banditry. I must say it's unacceptable that bandits must be fought and federal government must subdue them. To negotiate with them is to expose Nigeria as a weak sovereign state, and it's unacceptable. At this point, I must say very big thank you for your time. This is Mr. Watu.